What's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and today I'm doing a Solfachord deck profile. So I'm really excited to do this for you guys because this deck's actually suggested to me by one of my patrons, Manny. And this deck is an amazing pendulum deck that revolves around getting an even and odd scale pendulum scale in your pendulum zone, which is a super unique thing for this deck to be able to do. This deck also recently got an amazing new link monster which increases the power level of this deck by a lot. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell there so you can become part of notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon in the description below for all those awesome rewards, like getting your name description in a single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month you're a patron. And definitely give Manny some love down in the comments down below for suggesting such an awesome deck. So let's get straight on into this one, guys. So first off, we're going to be playing 2 copies of Solfachord Kulia. This card is a definite 2 in the deck and is just an awesome boss monster to be able to play in this build. This card is super easy to get on your side of the field because you can special summon this card from your hand by attributing 2 pendulum monsters. And it has a really cool effect that you can target a face-up card your opponent controls, or up to 2 if you have an odd pendulum scale in your pendulum zone and negate its effects until the end of the opponent's turn, which is a really cool effect to be able to use with this card. I absolutely love this card as a 2 of boss monster in the deck. We then play a single copy of Yugioh. Yugioh is just a really good 1-up in the deck, and this card is great because it is actually an even scale that is a scale 2 in this build. We're then playing 2 copies of Angelia. Angelia is definitely a 2 in the deck. This is one of the best cards in the entire build. That while you have an odd pendulum scale in your pendulum zone, if your Solfachord pendulum monster attacks, your opponent cannot activate spells or traps or effects until the end of the damage step. And during your main phase, you can tribute a Solfachord pendulum monster even if face down, and if you do, special summon a Solfachord pendulum monster from your deck, whose pendulum scale is 2 higher or 2 lower than the monster that you tributed, which is a really awesome effect to be able to use to instantly get the exact Solfachord monster you need on your side of the field. We then play 2 copies of Gracia. Gracia is a definite 2 on the build because this card actually can search your spells or traps, which is a really good effect. If this card is normal or special summon, you can add a Solfachord spell or trap from your deck to your hand, which is a really good effect to be able to use with this card. We then play 3 copies of Fancia. Fancia is definitely a 3 of in the deck. This card is really, really good in this particular build because while you have an odd pendulum scale in your pendulum zone, if your Solfachord pendulum monster would be destroyed by battle, you can destroy this card instead. And during your main phase, you can add a Solfachord pendulum monster from your deck to your extra deck face up, except another copy of this card, which means you can actually pendulum summon out some really powerful cards with this card's effect, getting your monsters to your extra deck. We then play just a single copy of the level 3. I feel like 1 is totally fine in this build. You really don't need any more than a single copy of this card. It's really good in this deck, but 1 is totally fine. We then play 3 copies of Dreamia. Dreamia is an awesome extender in the deck. This card is a great ability that while you have an odd pendulum scale in your pendulum zone, if a Solfachord pendulum monster card you control would be destroyed by your opponent's card effect, you can destroy this card instead of one of those cards. And if you control a Solfachord card in your pendulum zone, you can special summon this card from your hand, making it super easy to be able to link summon with this card. We then play 3 copies of Yugioh. Yugioh is an insane card in this deck. This card is a awesome 3 of in this deck. This card is so easy to get on your side of the field and just a really good card in the deck. Now while you have an even pendulum scale in your pendulum zone, Solfachord pendulum monsters you control gain attack equal times 100 times their own pendulum scale. And if this card is normal or special summon, you can add a Solfachord pendulum monster from your deck to your hand, except another copy of this card, which is a really good effect to be able to use with this card, especially with the copies of Diviner in the deck. They can actually special summon this card out to your side of the field. We then play 2 copies of Harmonizing Magician. Harmonizing Magician is great to help us synchro summon the deck, because when you pendulum summon this card out to your side of the field, you actually get to special summon a Magician pendulum monster from your deck in defense position to your side of the field, which we actually have 2 targets in this deck to be able to summon. One of which being Purple Poison Magician, and the other one being Oath Dragon Magician. These are just really good in the deck to be able to use, because they help you get your monsters out on your side of the field, so you can either go for a level 8 synchro play or a level 10 synchro play, which is really good to be able to use in the deck, and they're just awesome in this particular build. So that's it for the pendulum monsters, guys. Let's get into the regular monsters we're playing in the deck. So for the other monsters we're playing in the deck, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Diviner of the Heralds. This card is awesome in the deck because if this card is normal or special, you can send a fairy monster from your deck or extra deck to the graveyard, and if you do, increase this card's level by that monster's level until the end of this turn. That's a really good effect to be able to use with our level 9 target, which is going to be a really awesome play to be able to use with this card because you actually send this card to the graveyard kind of like you do in Generator, which is really cool because you actually have the ability, if your copy of Diviner is attributed, you can special summon a level 2 or lower fairy monster from your hand or deck to your side of the field, which is really good to combo with your copy of Yugioh, which is going to get you another monster on your side of the field and is really helpful because it actually gives you a search, which is really nice for this deck. It's a really cool combo in the deck because your copy of your level 9 can actually tribute your copy of Diviner on your side of the field from the graveyard to special summon itself to your side of the field, which will then get you a Yugioh on the field, will then get you another search off the Yugioh's effect. So this card is the best starter in the entire deck and a definite 3 of in the build. We're then playing 2 copies of Logath. Logath is a really good extender in the deck that can actually special summon itself to your side of the field, which is just really good in this deck as a 2 of. And then we play 3 copies of Ash Blossom to round out the monsters. Ash Blossom is just really good at stopping your opponent from touching the deck, so it's a definite 3 of in this build. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to start with a single copy of 1 for 1. 1 for 1 is really good because it can actually get our copy of Yugioh on our side of the field extremely easily. We then play 2 copies of the Field Spell. This card is really good in the deck as a 2 of, and it's super helpful because it has some awesome effects that you can activate one of these effects. Add a face-up Solfachord Pendulum monster from your extra deck to your hand. Increase the Pendulum scale of one of your Solfachord cards in your Pendulum zone by its level this turn. Or if you control a Solfachord Pendulum monster card with 3 different even scales and 3 different odd pendulum scales, destroy 1 card your opponent controls. This card is a definite 2 of in the deck and is really good as a 2 of in the build. We're then going to play 3 copies of Elegance to round out the spells. This card is insane. This card is so good in the deck and a definite 3 of, and makes the entire deck work. It has the ability to activate one of these effects that you place a Solfachord Pendulum monster from your deck in your Pendulum zone, or add a Solfachord Pendulum monster from your hand to your extra deck face up, then place 2 Solfachord Pendulum monsters, 1 odd scale and 1 even scale in your Pendulum zone, which is the effect we're always going to use, essentially being a copy of Pendulum Call. Or add 2 cards, 1 odd scale and 1 even scale from your Pendulum zone to your extra deck face up, and if you do, draw 2 cards. This card is absolutely broken and just a definite 3 of in the deck to help you go in for so many different plays and pretty much set up your Pendulum scales on its own. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're going to be playing a single copy of Musica. Musica is really good in this deck as 1 of. It is searchable, and this card has 3 really good effects. If you can activate one of these effects based on the pendulum scales of Solfachord Pendulum monsters that you control. If you control an odd, you special summon 1 face of Solfachord Pendulum monster with an odd scale from your extra deck. If you control even, you special summon an even scale from your extra deck. And if you control an even and an odd, you can target 1 card your opponent controls and destroy it, and you can activate 1 of this card per turn. But this card is really good in the deck as a 1 of. We then play 3 copies of Impermanence. Impermanence is really good in this deck to be able to back up the deck and basically negate your opponent's monster effects, and it's really good to be able to set on your side of the field and lock down entire columns of spells and traps. This card is definitely a 3 of in the deck. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to start off with 2 copies of Kulia. Kulia is such a good 2 of in this deck, and this card is an amazing new boss monster that we got out of the most recent pack. This card is so powerful. It takes 2 monsters, including a Pendulum monster, to make this card, so it's extremely generic to make. And this card has the ability to gain 100 attack for each face-up Pendulum monster in your extra deck. And the activated effects of your Pendulum monsters this card points to cannot be negated. And once per turn, when your opponent activates a card or effect, quick effect, you can special summon a Solfachord monster with an odd scale from your Pendulum zone into a zone this card points to. And if you do, negate the activation. Then you can add a Solfachord Pendulum monster with an even scale from your deck to your face up to your extra deck, which is a really good effect to be able to use with this card. And this card is absolutely amazing because it is a walking negate, and it's just such a powerful card in this deck. This card is a definite 2-of in the build. We're then playing a single copy of Musica. Musica is a really good 1-of in the deck, but you only really need a single copy of this card because you're always going to want to step into your copy of Kulia more, because Kulia is just an absolutely crazy powerful card. This card does have its uses because during your main phase, you can add a Pendulum monster from your hand to your extra deck face up, and one face up Pendulum monster from your extra deck to your hand, letting you tag out your cards to get the exact card that you want in your hand, which is really good to be able to recover your copies of Cutia, which is just really, really nice. But this card is a definite 1-of in the deck. We're then playing a really spicy tech boss monster in the deck because we're playing so many different attributes, and that's going to be a single copy of 5-headed Link Dragon. This card is really insane in the deck, and you can actually summon this card extremely easily in this build, which is really insane, because if this card has the ability that it must be link summoned, and if this card is link summoned using a Dark Earth, Water, Fire, and Wind attribute monster, you destroy all cards your opponent controls, and it cannot be destroyed by battle with a Dark Earth, Wind, Fire, Water, or Wind monster, which is insanely powerful for this card to be able to do. It's also unaffected by other cards' effects, and once returned during your opponent's end phase, you must banish 5 cards from your graveyard face down, not optional, or send this card to the graveyard, but usually when you're summoning out this card, you're going in for the OTK. But you actually play all the different attributes in the main deck, making this card really easy to actually summon to your side of the field. The only thing that really affects this card is light monsters, which is the only downside of this card, but it's insane how easy it is to put all 5 different attributes into this boss monster. We then play a single copy of Avermax. Avermax is just a really good boss monster to be able to play in this deck, and it's very easy to put on your side of the field. We then play a single copy of Access Code. Access Code's really good in this deck to be able to pop multiple cards on the field, and it's a great boss monster in just about any deck. We then play a single copy of Appaloosa. Appaloosa's great in this particular build, especially for its link arrows, and it's a really good card in this particular deck to have as a monster negate. We then play a single copy of Unicorn. Unicorn is great to be able to spin cards. This card is just great in this particular build. We then play 2 copies of Beyond the Pendulum. Beyond the Pendulum is really good in any Pendulum deck, and this card is great to be able to search the exact cards that you need and pop cards on the field. We then play a single copy of IP Masquerena. Masquerena is great to be able to make Unicorn during the opponent's turn, so you can spin cards, or even make your copy of Crusadia Avermax during the opponent's turn, which is really nice. We then play a single copy of Absolute Dragon. Absolute Dragon is absolutely amazing, since you can actually summon out your copy of Vortex Dragon, which is a walking negate. These cards work together so well in this particular build. We then play a single copy of Baron de Fleur and a single copy of Borreload Savage Dragon, both being awesome negates in this particular build, making it a really fun deck to play. So that's going to do it for this one, guys. This deck is super fun to be able to play. If you guys have never played Solfachord before, you should definitely give this deck a try, because it's a really fun deck to be able to play, especially with the new boss monster Kulia. Kulia is just such a cool card to be able to play on your side of the field, and a really awesome card, especially with all of its downward arrows. So that's going to do it for this one, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of the notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.